everybody. Keith Sanchez, Damian Parson, Ryan Fowler from the Draft Network. Saw the quarterbacks work out today, fellas. And where else can we start? With Anthony Richardson checking off every single intangible box that we wanted to see here in Indy. Keith, impressions of Anthony Richardson?
Man, I thought he showed everything, right? We heard all the rumors throughout the entire season. We seen the big-time runs against LSU and other SEC opponents. Everybody talked about how this guy was going to test, and he showed up, man. And not only did he show up, you seen when he finished his 40, he kind of gave, the little two fingers and, kind of beat his chest a little bit, that he expected that, right? Like, that was something that he was striving for. So now we know, as a quarterback prospect, this is an elite-level athlete. We're talking about rare form quarterback, right? Like, this guy he's ran with the DBs and the wide receivers at 240 pounds. Vertical was up there. So I just thought it was very impressive. And now it's going to, kind of transition into NFL GMs and owners. Everybody's going to think, what can we do with this quarterback prospect?
I think the big thing for him was simply understanding the assignment, right? No one really knew who he was as a person. So what was the first thing he did? He came out here and dominated the interviews. Then coming on the field, running in the 4.4s, jumping over 40 inches in the vert, right? 10 plus in the broad. And then be able to show the arm talent. And not only that, but when he made mistakes, when he missed throws, he came back to the same throw and nailed it the next 2 or 3 times. So it just shows the recall and understanding, man, I know what I did wrong in that last one. So those shows the mental processing for him. I was excited to see what he did. I was expecting that. Everybody knows that I've been a big fan of his for about a year now. So I was expecting him to go out there and shine, and became a star, and that's what he did.
Another guy in that group was C.J. Stroud, Ohio State. I mean, what else can we say? Fluid, smooth, everything that he did was on time, accurate. He just looks poised and so comfortable, and it's just easy, right? You could just tell, the old eye test, right? We talk about it all the time, the analytics. We look at the tape. C.J. Stroud just has it all. Keith, your impressions of C.J. Stroud today?
I think it's simply time to give CJ his respect, man. At the end of the day, right? Like, he's went from last year to this year throwing 40-plus touchdowns, balling out, but it seems as though we're somewhat stuck between, right? Bryce Young, obviously Heisman winner, and then we have Will Levis, we have Anthony Richardson, these two quarterbacks with these great physical profiles, and then CJ Stroud continue to just kind of fall through the cracks, but it's not because he's not playing well. He's balling out. So I think for me, man, I'm putting emphasis on this guy needs to be in consideration for QB1 for real, because you're talking about one of the best throwers of the football in this class. He has it, right? Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, they're trying to get to where he is as a passer. Then you talk about the height, weight perspective. He has that already. So I think that he showed well, at the podium, like DP talked about with Anthony Richardson. He was commanding at the podium. This is a guy that's a personality, and I think he's fearless as a quarterback, if you ask me. I think he's completely comfortable with walking in the locker room next year full of grown men and doing his thing.
Damien?
I look at it like this. When they were doing the deep throw drill, right? And him and A-Rich were kind of going back and forth. You saw the competitive streak.
Yeah, you seen it. You definitely seen it, dude.
You saw it in his eyes. Like, he was locked in. Like, oh, okay, so that's what you're going to do. I got something for that too. But what I love is that he showed the arm talent, right? To throw it from the 10 and get it to the opposite 30, right? And just not. I think what the big thing for him was coming out here and removing himself from Ohio State. Remove himself from the narrative that, oh, well, he's got Marvin Harrison Jr., he has Emeka Ibuka. Well, he didn't have those guys out here, guys. Like, he didn't have either one of them. And he was still throwing, he was crossing every T and dotting every I. He did everything he needed to do out here. And that competitive moment on the deep ball drill, I loved every minute of it, because for that drill, you don't see guys. It's kind of like the All-Star game, right? It's all fun and games until it's like close, and now everybody's playing defense. So that was great to see from him, and just watch him come out here and perform and remove himself from all the narratives that's been said about him.
It was one of those. I don't mean to cut you off, Ryan, but it was one of those ready for the moment, right? Like, because the fans were in there too, right? And the fans are cheering and everything. And I think he got a little mad when the fans kind of cheered a little bit louder for Anthony Richardson. So he was like, I'm about to hit this back foot and let it rip. So I think it was exciting for us as to be able to see that and just see the competitive spirit that C.J. Stroud has.
If I can put everything that he did today in one word, it was textbook. The throwing motion, the smoothness, the preciseness that everything on time, clean, in rhythm. And it's like, man, this is what you want. And you talked about with Bryce and the other guys, and why we love the 2 trucks in this draft with Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. I think the thing with CJ is that simply he's the best pure passer out of all these quarterbacks.
Now, we didn't see Bryce Young test throw here in Indy, but we did see Will Levis throw today. Thoughts on Will Levis? Obviously, there's a lot of questions with his game, what his potential could be at the next level. He's a project right now, right? Anthony Richardson and him as guys, big, strong, physical athletes. Will Levis didn't impress me today. Did he impress you guys?
Man, I thought it was Man, you had a good phrase. I'm trying to find another phrase. I'm going to say on par. I thought it was on par in the sense of the fact of that there were inconsistent moments with Will Levis. And like you talked about Anthony Richardson, he had his moments where it wasn't an accurate pass, but he delivered an accurate pass after that. I think with Will Levis, at times it was 2-3 passes to where it was like, come on, I wish you would have hit that, just a little bit more and a little bit more consistent. So with Will Levis, like I said, I thought it was on par. We have the pro day coming up and maybe to be able to pull even more from that because we know that he has a big arm.
And the combine isn't everything, right? We obviously have tape. We understand who he is. But just seeing him in a neutral environment, t-shirt and shorts, there's obviously some weight to hold into.
But we have to talk about it, right?
Absolutely.
Because the combine was an opportunity to get Will Levis away from where he was, right? Because throughout the season, since day one, right, September 1st, it was the O-line. Then when the O-line wasn't bad, it was the wide receivers. Then when the wide receivers wasn't bad, it was like, remember the offensive coordinator from last year? He's not there. So we put everything, into everybody but Will Levis, right? And I think this was the first opportunity where we say, hey, everything is equal now, right? You have the same wide receivers that everybody else has, and there's no offensive line to block any defensive line. You're A-OK. So I think that's what my biggest takeaway from Will Levis was.
To kind of combine what you said, Keith, and add on to when you said on par, it's inconsistent. His tape is inconsistent. It's been inconsistent for 2 years now. Yes, he has the truck traits, the traits to be a franchise quarterback, right? But when you got, and I put it in my report that you can check out on thedraftnetwork.com. But in my report, I put there that he's a see it, throw it type of passer, and that he struggles with the deep ball. That for a guy that has a big arm, his deep ball accuracy is still lacking, and you saw that today in the deep ball drill, right? He either underthrow or it just was the time he was late. And then, he had one really nice rep, right? But it's the simple fact of it's too many peaks and valleys. He's a more horizontal passer. And for me, I was not impressed because I want him to come out here and separate. This was the first time we've seen him since the season. He didn't go to the bowl game. He opted out. He couldn't show up in Mobile. So this was the moment for Will Levis to say, I'm QB1. This is what Colts, Raiders, Panthers, you got these picks? Come up to number 1. Chicago wants out and come get me. He did not do that. He didn't separate himself, unlike the guy we talked about at the beginning.
The quarterback class is going to be headlining all the way up until April, until we get to Kansas City. Keith Sanchez, Damian Parson, Ryan Fowler from the Draft Network.